Earlier this year, I live in California. I felt like Elon Musk had grabbed me, stuck me onto a SpaceX rocket, and transported me to Mars or some dystopian future because the sky was deep red. There was thick gray ash falling. Every door was shut, and not because of COVID, but because a significant portion of the entire state was on fire. In fact, in California, the six largest wildfires in history were all in 2020, right? For those of you that are sports fans, imagine the top six quarterbacks of all time. So you got Brady and Manning and Montana and Favre, Elway, et cetera, et cetera. All of these guys break their throwing records in the same year. How ridiculously bizarre would that be if it happened, right? Well, only as ridiculously bizarre as California's wildfire season in 2020. You get my point, right? 10,000 homes and commercial buildings burned down. No one disputes it. Tens of billions in losses and inevitably huge insurance hikes. No one disputes that either. By one estimate, these wildfires in California are going to double again from their 2020 level, greatest in history. They're going to double again in just 5 years and could quadruple in 11 years. I wonder what the impact on California property pricing would be if that actually did happen. And it's not just the damage from the wildfires. California, Oregon, and Washington are three states that have the highest number of ski resorts at risk. Ski resorts have, super expensive real estate. But imagine you are an investor in real estate in a West Coast ski resort. Let's call it Soda Springs, right? So you start noticing, you live there, or you go there, you notice that the ski season starts one day later on average each year, and it ends a day earlier on average each year. So you get curious, you start researching future projections about Soda Springs, right? This ski resort. And you discover to your shock that projections actually show that Soda Springs won't even be a ski resort in the future. While that's going to take decades, within the next 10 to 15 years, the ski season in Soda Springs would be so short that ski operators couldn't make money. They couldn't break even, the lift operators. And so they're going to shut shop. So even before there's no snow, you could get to the point where Soda Springs becomes financially unviable. Once again, I'm following the money. I don't trust the political parties, right? If that happened, if the ski operators started to shut shop because they couldn't make enough money, would you think about moving your investments elsewhere? And if everyone moved their investment, wouldn't some of these fancy ski resorts look like abandoned mining towns in 10 to 20 years? And that's the point, guys. America's history is filled with boom towns that were then abandoned. It happened during the gold rush. It happened elsewhere. It happened during the oil boom. It could happen again. There's no law that prevents these towns from being abandoned. So think about that. But many of you sitting right now and listening to me, there's 250 of you now, are going to put in the chat, hey, Neil, these impacts are years in the future. This 5 years, 10 years, who gives a shit, right? We're going to worry about it 10 years from now. Wrong again. Take a look at this video.
Nearly 5 million people have been displaced from their homes in the past 5 years because of natural disasters triggered by the climate crisis. So whether people are forced to leave or choose to, where might they go? Climate researchers say the answer is in and up to havens away from the coasts and the heat. Think Duluth, Toledo, Madison, or Buffalo.
The cities prepare to onboard climigrants, as we call them, climate migrants. They need a variety of different investments in affordable housing and transportation, in economic development.
And that's another challenge. More people will mean more infrastructure needs. And for
all right, so I cut the video off there. I wanted you to hear this word that I think you've never heard before. Climigrants, people fleeing climate change. And we're going to talk more about that in some of the coming slides, and we'll also talk about it at the end. So I wanted to point out that you can't wait 10 years from now. A lot of these things are already happening. Once again, I'm not going to go into whether it's natural gas and oil and coal that's creating it. My point is, Who cares what creates climate change? Its impact is real, and we're feeling it every day now. We're not feeling it in the future, we're feeling it today, right? And even more than that, the reason why you need to think about this right now for real estate is because of Moody's. Remember that company, Moody's? These guys, they started to plug their future projections of climate related losses into their ratings in the last few years. And they started building something known as a risk scorecard. You see one on the screen. And when they did that, guess what happened? The insurance company in the US started to wake up and smell the risk. Bad pun, smell the risk. Take a look at the screen, right? Look at the stuff that's showing up. The insurance industry started to hike insurance premiums left and right. Insurance in the US started going up 10% every year. 2017, 10%, 2018, 10%, 2019, 10%, 2020, 10%, 2021, more than 10%. How can that be? If in the United States, you've got and insurance is a very cutthroat industry. There's a lot of, there's an incredible amount of competition there. So you can't really charge what you want, but people have been hiking insurance 10%. They could only be hiking it if real events were impacting, real estate, right? So you've seen that. So then the apartment industry in the US started taking notice. So the big wigs in the apartment industry, like guys like 10 levels above me, they started screaming at insurance companies. They started crying foul, right? And this huge hue and cry has started to force the insurance industry to move away from its 100-year-old one size fits all insurance model. More and more insurance are now saying something scary. Look, if Miami is going to get flooded every other year, we can't penalize Oklahoma apartments. If Northern California is going to be on fire every year, should San Diego be paying so much more in insurance? It's not fair. So insurance companies have now started to buy climate change data from Moody's. Did you see that dashboard, that risk dashboard on the last slide? They've started buying that stuff from Moody's, and they're developing city by city and state by state models for insurance based on climate risk. Once again, they've already decided this has to happen. So who cares if climate change is real or not? People have already made up their mind, and they have more money than you do. So we're now moving towards a weird future where insurance in Miami, a city that's very, very high in the risk ratings, could easily be 5 to 10 times the insurance in Boise, Idaho, a city very low in the risk ratings. And this information alone should convince you that as a real estate investor today, you need to learn more about climate change and factor it into your investments. But I'm just getting started. There's a good portion of my presentation that I still want to do, right? So massive insurance hikes, really bad for business. But you know what's worse? City downgrades. Moody's and S&P Global are now using climate risk to downgrade entire cities, major cities. Now, we haven't seen any states downgraded, but Florida and California had better watch out. On the slide on your screen, you can see that a city as big as New Orleans, we're talking about a city of 500,000 people, a metro of more than 1 million people, was recently downgraded from a medium grade BBB plus to a B, which in Moody's words is considered speculative, subject to high credit risk. So guess what happens when a city gets downgraded? Well, the city's ability to borrow money goes down. Borrowers are skittish, they charge much higher interest rates. This prevents the city from rebuilding its infrastructure after a climate change event like Katrina. That makes people leave. It creates a destructive spiral from which the city may never recover. And if you were investing in a city like this, well, you may never recover. And you know what's much worse than city downgrades? An end to the 30-year mortgage. Take a look at the New York Times headlines on the right side of the page. Now, the 30-year residential mortgage is an American institution. It's like Santa Claus. It's just something that we've come to believe that a 30-year mortgage is our right. Like it's something that Jefferson wrote into the Constitution. Well, the truth is that the only reason that the 30-year mortgage exists, only one reason, is that lenders in the US believe that the home that's being financed is going to be worth more money in 30 years from now. So what happens if the lenders start losing that belief? Well, it would be disastrous, right? If lenders felt that 30 years from now, 500,000 homes in the US would be flooded each year, would they actually provide a 30-year loan? Would they provide a loan to ski resorts with no snowpack in 30 years? Would they do it from cities that are projected to be hit by Category 5 hurricanes every other year, 30 years from now? I mean, step back and think about it. What bank would be crazy enough to offer a 30-year loan on a property that's almost guaranteed to be unlivable in 30 years? So right now, today, in virtual conferences, there's no real conferences happening yet. In virtual conferences in the US, members of the Mortgage Banking Association are huddling around their iPads and making lists of cities that will switch to 20-year mortgages or even 15-year mortgages. Imagine the catastrophic impact to home prices in those cities. The residents are already battered by ever larger climate tragedies in those, every year. And now their homes are falling in value. Would they be inclined to move to areas that have no climate change impact? And wouldn't those areas, those new areas, become the new American gold rush? Think about it.